It's November of 2012 and Halo 4 has come out. Super hype, Master Chief and Blue Eagle are back, multiplayer has creator class, yeah! No, there is no time to play this anymore. Wanna know why? Because we're back in black, baby! Call of Duty Black Ops 2 is turning 10 years old today, and I can remember very vividly, I was on holiday for a few days and almost refused to go because I knew Black Ops 2 was coming out. Part of the deal with my parents to go on holiday was that I could buy Black Ops 2, and I did. After an excruciatingly long car ride home the next day, after staring at the back of the box and reading the manual— oh yeah, no, actually, Black Ops 2 didn't have a manual, never mind. We got back home, into the Xbox, download the update on my 40 kilobytes per second internet really slowly, and we're in. 10 years later, this menu music is enough to send chills down my spine like it did the first time. Black Ops 2 represents a massive chunk of my childhood and teenage years spent playing video games. I loved this game. If you're watching this video, you probably loved this game too. However, it wasn't always like that. Black Ops 2 had a pretty tough time winning people over, as evidenced by the public's initial response to its trailer and being the first futuristic COD game. After Black Ops 1 and Modern Warfare 3, two of the best-selling games of all time, to say the expectations were massive for this game would be an understatement. So, looking back on Black Ops 2 a decade later, how well does it hold up? What were some of the bumps that it hit along the road to becoming not just one of the most beloved Call of Duty titles, but first-person shooters of all time?
Your life will be consumed by absolute loss. Then and only then will you understand what you have done to me.
Hello there guys, gals, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Leipaladin, and in an effort to remind myself of the good times that seem to be long behind us, I'm diving back into Black Ops 2 and hitting you all with an unhealthy dose of nostalgia. Before we get into the video, I don't normally ask for this, but I'd really appreciate it if you'd consider subscribing to the channel. I'm hoping to hit 10k by the end of the year, and if you could help me reach that goal, I'd be over the moon. I promise this will be the last time I ask for that in this video. I see Black Ops 2 as the epitome of a very special era in my life, when I was just young enough to not have to worry about all those pesky adult responsibilities, while also being old enough to enjoy the mum fornicating jokes, casual trash talking competitions of Xbox Live,
see whatever I want, alright, you're f***ing raging gravy tunnel,
and the darker themes that the game was depicting in its zombies and campaign modes. Speaking of campaign, let's talk about that. While often an overlooked aspect of most Call of Duty games, Black Ops 2's campaign is definitely worth playing, if not for the amount of times Tony Todd calls someone or something a cocksucker, but for the surprisingly deep commentary that the story makes on previous Call of Duty games. I know what you're thinking, Call of Duty can't have a deep story, it's just dumb action. Yes! You'd be right in that respect, but also no, there is a lot of dumb action, cliche moments, and the occasional bit of exposition, poorly written dialogue, or twist for the sake of it, but it's paired with Treyarch's infamous use of dark subject matters and having the whole story center around the theme of revenge. Revenge is the crux of almost every good story in a Call of Duty game, and Black Ops 2's villain, Raul Menendez, is the perfect embodiment of this theme. Not only that, but he's the first villain in a COD game that I actually feel something for. But before we get into him, let's rewind quickly and look at Treyarch's campaignography. That's not a word, whatever it is. Starting with World at War. The first mission that we're introduced to Dmitry Petrenko and Viktor Reznov in the Russian side of the campaign, we see firsthand the brutality of war and the destruction caused by the I don't think I can say that word, at least not without getting demonetized. You're forced to crawl through the bodies of your fellow soldiers until you meet Reznov, a man who is fixated on taking revenge against those that have done this. You spend the rest of the Russian campaign taking the fight back to German people, to their land, and to their blood. In Black Ops 1, this theme of revenge rubs off on a new generation of characters, namely Alex Mason, who spends the runtime of the story wanting to find and kill
Dragovich, Kravchenko, Stein,
First, we're led to believe it's because they banished Mason to snowy Brazil, but it's actually due to the brainwashing he experienced at their hands, which was interfered with by Reznov, who wants revenge for the injustices done to him and his friends, namely Dmitri, by the treacherous trio. You got all that? Yeah, it's quite a bit to take in. In each of these games, taking revenge is framed as a good thing. Most of the time. World at War occasionally skirts the line and stops to let the player question their actions and their choices, whereas Black Ops 1 frequently revels in the thought of ticking off another box with a generic evil guy's name next to it. In Black Ops 2, however, we're on the other side of this revenge, the receiving end of it, and we see just how devastating it can be once it's been allowed to escalate. Menendez starts off as a leader of a cartel who had his family assassinated by the CIA and his sister scarred beyond recognition because of a tax write-off.
For insurance money, $11,000. That was the value they placed on her life.
All of which was done by people from the United States. This led him to smuggle guns and incite conflict within various nations. It's here that we begin to see him becoming more than just a simple seller of weapons, but a propagandist who hates the West with a passion and their dominance in the global landscape, purely out of spite for what they did to him. Menendez puts Frank Woods, a fan-favorite character from the previous Black Ops game, through torture that was so violent, even Treyarch refrained from showing us a majority of it, which leads to the true tipping point of the story, where at the mere sight of him, Woods goes ballistic, and it's his callousness that causes the death of the only thing that Menendez truly values, his sister, Josefina. Once Menendez had lost everything, his family, his sister, and his empire, he had nothing left to lose. From this point onwards, he slowly unravels the lives of those he believes have done him wrong, giving Woods a fate worse than death, letting him live with the knowledge that he was responsible for killing his best friend Alex Mason, and watching his orphaned son David grow up, not telling him what he did out of fear that he might lose the only connection he has left to his old friend. When you put it like that, I feel really bad for Woods now. Woods had to watch on as Hudson died in probably the most brutal moment in the entire series, who was a damn hero, by the way. Hudson spends the entirety of the Black Ops series being a cold son of a bitch who we really know nothing about. But right at the end, we see a bit of what's under that detached and professional visage and the aviators when he sacrifices his life to save David and Woods.
I can't. I have 2 kids. They... Fuck! Okay, me! Do it! Do it!
Killing, war, and controlling other nations through militaristic means and probing into their affairs has become too easy with the introduction of unarmed drones and other forms of advanced technology, so Menendez seeks to shift that balance of power and incite chaos, which is exactly what he does by the end of the campaign. The Black Ops series of games normally end on a melancholic note, but are preceded by a moment of victory, whether it's planting the flag in the Reichstag or the jet flyover at the end of Black Ops 1. But Black Ops 2, you essentially lose no matter which path you choose to go down. Killing Menendez makes him a martyr for his revolutionary movement, but keeping him alive is probably just as useless. And given his pretense for always being one step ahead of everyone else, a future with him in it doesn't look good. They say a story is only as good as its villain, and Menendez is fantastic. As much as you want to hate him, you can't help but sympathize with his character in some ways and see just how twisted the US is and some of the dreadful things it'll do under the pretense of national security. It shines a light on some of the shady stuff that we've been forced to do in previous Call of Duty campaigns and makes you wonder if Menendez, like his rumored cyber weapon in the campaign, is just the embodiment of karma, coming back to bite us in the ass for years worth of awful shit that we've done while playing the campaigns. Quick tangent about the soundtrack of Black Ops 2, but I think Jack Wall and Brian Toohey did a terrific job of differentiating the sounds for both the future and 80s Cold War era music. More orchestral stuff for the 80s and synth for the 2025 setting. It's typical for many composers nowadays to fall back on synthy music for anything to do with the 1980s. Thanks, Stranger Things! But Black Ops 2 thankfully doesn't do that. The music is a great complement to the action when it's there, but can also be softer and more somber when it needs to be. Nino Precioso, I probably butchered that, is beautiful, with the vocals done by Camar de Lores, the voice actor for Menendez. There's also some awesome callbacks to previous Black Ops soundtracks when they used Anvil from Black Ops 1, the theme for Reznov during the interrogation of Kravchenko, and when Mason thinks that Reznov has come back to save him from the desert.
It was perfect.
everything, down to the last minute details.
While Black Ops 2's campaign is quite messy and a bit over the top, its dark story is wrapped in a layer of dumb fun that makes it much easier to stomach. The biggest shame of all, however, is that we never got to see the continuation of the characters in this story. We never got to see David Mason reconciling with his absent father, depending on the ending you get in the game. We never find out what Menendez was talking about when he mentions Ulysses during his apprehension, and we don't see the direct consequences of the power gap that's been created by the US and China having their militaries crippled. What can I say about Black Ops 2's multiplayer that hasn't already been said? BO2's MP represents the culmination of the Xbox 360 PS3 generation of COD games. The broad selection of weapons, attachments, and camos like Black Ops 1, plenty of perks like Modern Warfare 2 and 3, all paired with satisfying gunplay and progression that builds upon the legacy established by World at War and the original Modern Warfare. However, all the high-octane gunplay and cool cosmetics in the world does not a good Call of Duty make, as evidenced by Infinity Ward's later Modern Warfare games. If you haven't got good maps, your game, it's a fucking write-off. You might as well not even play it. Maps make or break a Call of Duty MP, and BO2 truly has some of the best in the series. Aside from a few stinkers, every map in Black Ops 2 has a unique aesthetic that helps them stand out from the last. Most importantly, however, Treyarch didn't shy away from giving them a bit of colour too, with most of the maps having a very specific palette and style, as opposed to later games where there's either not a lot of colour or too many maps that share similar characteristics. Don't get it twisted though, a lot of these play spaces follow a very safe set of rules that typically use the staple Treyarch 3-lane map design, but with enough to make encounters feel interesting and varied depending on the path you choose to go down. Raid is a good example of this use of a 3-lane map design. Each team has its own lookout point over each side lane, with varying levels of cover to move between and counter positions for those abusing certain camping spots. The middle lane is pure close quarters chaos, and you can get in some pretty good snipes there too, with players able to cross over from the other lanes to provide support, or get picked off because they're not paying attention. Black Ops 2 was also the first game to introduce the Pick 10 and wildcard systems. This meant you really had to think about what you wanted on your classes. Did you want that extra attachment for your MSMC instead of a secondary weapon like a launcher for shooting down score streaks? Was having 2 tier 3 perks worth the loss of a lethal grenade? I know there are some people who despise the system, but I like to think it made people strategize more, focus on their classes and how best to cater them to a specific playstyle. It also meant that you would actually have to change classes in-game to get a specific perk or weapon for a situation later in the match, instead of relying on the same shit for an entire match because nothing is off limits. For those who really wanted it though, Black Ops 2 had a ranked playlist with League Play, there was hardcore for those who enjoy getting their cock and balls stepped on by football boots, and plenty of great playlists in between. The multiplayer also encouraged communication between players, opting to kick those in Xbox Live parties and the like for one-life modes such as Search and Destroy. The social aspect of the game was fire! The trash talking scene, trolling, custom emblem creations, all of that really began to take off with Black Ops 2 and was further supported with its amazing theater mode and COD TV, which allowed players to share their clutch clips, funny screenshots, or custom game modes. Black Ops 2 did for Call of Duty what Halo 3 did for that series and its community, turning the game into its own mini social media platform that was almost as fun to browse through as it was to play an actual match. Though the sad reality nowadays is that Black Ops 2 is very much a dead game that's having its corpse being defaced and paraded around by hackers, posting all kinds of obscene things in the once wholesome and occasionally quite funny COD TV. I should probably do my civil duty and let you all know that if you're thinking of getting back into Black Ops 2 for its 10th anniversary, don't. Public matches are infested with hackers, and there are several exploits that they can use to crash your game, reset your progress, even divulging IP addresses. If you are wanting to relive the glory days, your best bet is to buy the game on PC and get on the Plutonium servers for the game. While Plutonium is great and I massively respect the team behind it, keeping Black Ops 2 and other classic COD titles alive, it really shouldn't be on the shoulders of the community to pick up the pieces. Activision are still out here charging $90 Australian for most of the old COD titles on Steam, and it's not much better on key websites either. If you're going to charge the full price of a new game for a decade-old title, at least have the decency to support it a little bit. But expecting anything else from Activision would be stupid, I suppose. Throw money at a developer to make a game comes out, support for a year, and after that, just let it die. And if you're someone who wants to play it outside of that time frame, well, don't, you idiot. buy the new game, and here's an ad for it too.
Consume so Papa Bobby can buy more investment properties and sacrificial altars.
Bit of a tangent there, but it is upsetting. Several million people used to live here, and now it's a ghost town. Speaking of towns, I remember there was a time when people genuinely thought that Black Ops 2 wouldn't even have a zombies mode. Black Ops 1 felt like a satisfying enough conclusion to the zombies story started in World at War. Richtofen finally got the power he wanted to control the hordes of the undead, and in response we blew up the world. Black Ops 2 Zombies is now fondly remembered as one of the best, if not the best, iteration of Treyarch's Zombies mode, improving upon what worked so well in previous titles, and not changing too much to the point of fixing something that wasn't broken. It was marketed more than zombie modes had been previously, with more resources being directed to it and new features as well. Black Ops 2 Zombies was the first to have a ranking system, albeit quite a flawed one that seemed to change every other month with no obvious signs that pointed to how you were supposed to rank up, a more fleshed out leaderboard system, and support for theater mode 2. Despite the general consensus now being that Black Ops 2 Zombies is incredible, it didn't always used to be that way, and all it took was one map to derail everything.
Fucking shithole! I hate the fucking place! I fucking hate it! It's full of dickheads! I fucking hate it!
Transit is god awful. There really is no better way to put it. I thought coming back to the map after a few years away from it would change my opinion slightly, and my rose-tinted glasses would aid me in bumping it up the echelon of zombies maps a little, but no, absolutely not. Transit is objectively the worst zombies map of all time, with few redeeming factors, and had obviously been thrown together with no consideration to the layout and the difficulty of the map. Between the poorly telegraphed and frustratingly inconsistent way to enter the bunker to pack a punch, the long, maze-like outdoor areas that are patrolled by the single most annoying enemy in a video game ever, and fog that's thicker than Misty, the lava, exploding zombies, the Avogadro, the new Victor's crew, and their grating lines of dialogue, and the bus. God. Oh, that still haunts my dreams to this day. Don't let your nostalgia for the loading music or some cringe TikTok edit make you think otherwise, alright? It's unfortunately a product of overambition from the Zombies team led by Jimmy Zeslinki, who was constantly trying to up the ante from map to map. I guess they thought the way to do this was making it bigger. Transit was, for quite a while, the biggest zombies map, and it shows, trust me, it fucking shows. Though so much of the space it occupies is nothing, it's just barren tarmac roads with brown haze everywhere to obstruct your vision, literally because the game couldn't render the map in a timely manner. So how do the devs cover this up? Maybe shrink the map down in size a bit? Remove some of those useless areas? Nope, just brown shit and fucking smoke everywhere! Thankfully, it wasn't all bad news though. Transit was divided up into smaller survival maps, those being Bus Depot, Farm, and Town. Town survival is really what held the zombies community together during those early months and weeks of Black Ops 2's lifecycle. Unfortunately though, Town was really the only survival map worth playing. For those who pre-ordered special editions of BO2 or were willing to fork out $10, you could play Nuketown. Reimagined as a zombies map, Nuketown is frequently overlooked by the community as a small, relatively uninteresting map, and to some extent I would agree. However, Nuketown poses an interesting challenge compared to other zombies maps and was quite a test of skill, even for the most fearsome of zombie players. Random perk drops that meant you would never know if Juggernaut was coming on round 5 or round 25, pretty mid-wall weapons, lots of tight walkways, and an amazing skybox that I always catch myself staring at. And then we got Die Rise. Whoa. Jimmy, what the fuck were you thinking? It's not as bad as Transit, but it's pretty bad. Die Rise was at least a step, or rather a leap, in the right direction, ditching the failed attempt at a semi-open world like Zombies map to something more linear. The Sliquifire is an excellent wonder weapon that actually penalized the player for using it inefficiently. I love how you could get every perk on the map by completing a challenge that is relatively simple on the surface but requires good communication with your teammates. The Trample Steam is hilarious, but otherwise that's where my praises end. Like Transit, Die Rise is a complicated mess of a map that's too big for its own good, with lots of artificial barriers stopping you from easily accessing other parts of the map. But thankfully, this all changed with the arrival of I cannot get down on my knees and blow Mob of the Dead hard enough. In addition to being my favourite zombies map, Mob took a breather from the mind-bending narrative of the Victus crew in the Ether storyline to tell a one-off story that follows 4 mobsters in a hellish purgatory on Alcatraz Island, fighting their way through endless waves of the undead as they try to follow the escape plan set out by the imaginative Weasel, someone that the rest of the mobsters plan to betray once they've escaped. Mob was like the zombies equivalent of the Batman to the Ether storyline's MCU. This map was spearheaded by my dad, Jason Blundell. This man, he's great! All my homies love Jason.
I'm a sucker for medieval castles.
Not only is Mob of the Dead a reference to the future of zombies being a cycle that our characters are trapped in until they can find a way to break it, but it also takes zombies back to its roots with a map that is truly scary. The atmosphere is incredible. It gives classics like Nacht on Toten and Verrückt a run for their money for creepiest in the series, and the soundtrack, mwah! Incredible. The Easter egg is very simple to follow with a satisfying conclusion, and it also set the trend for zombies maps going forward, establishing a more complex formula of completing multiple tasks each game and memorizing where everything is in order to progress, rather than just opening doors and turning on the power. Some, however, felt that Mob was maybe a bit too difficult. Its tight, candlelit corridors and strict time frame for completing objectives proved to be a negative for some. Buried, however, manages to dumb this down, arguably making it a little too dumb. After the missteps of Transit and Die Rise, Zizlinki returned to take the reins from Jason Blundell one last time, and the Zombies team made a map that was just pure, unadulterated fun. Many tend to rag on Buried for being too easy, and they'd be right, but also, I don't care. It's such a fun map with a beautiful aesthetic and fun new gameplay features to cap it all off. There's the raving alcoholic Leroy, who's your ticket to opening up the map, a wonder weapon that allows you to fly, a genuinely scary set of boss enemies that make getting to Pack-a-Punch a proper challenge, and probably the best new addition to the perk roster since PhD Flopper. Buried embraces a more traditional style of zombies experience where you lock down an area and defend it wave after wave, while including plenty of stuff to do that adds to the map's replayability. If you want to camp, you absolutely can. In fact, all the buildable items on the map practically are begging you to. The first floor of the saloon is up there with Doris's catwalk for best camping spot in zombies history. Sitting there with the subwoofer machine killing zombies with the power of Russian hard bass will never get old. Usually praised as one of, if not the best zombies map of all time, Origins introduces us to a reimagined version of the original crew, Dempsey, Richtofen, Nikolai and Takio, this time seeing them in the trenches of World War I as a zombie outbreak spreads across a Group 935 dig site that holds many mysteries within. Origins is a contentious one for me because on the one hand I really admire its setting and how much Treyarch were able to get away with considering the limitations of current gen consoles, but it also represents the end of an era for zombies, and it's hard talking about it without mentioning its impact on the future of the mode. If Mob of the Dead helped to pave the way for the Blundell era and the quest-based progression of zombies maps, Origins chiseled it in stone for every zombies experience going forward. Thankfully, Origins is one of the easier maps to understand what you're supposed to do compared to maps that followed in the future, but only once you've seen half a dozen Mr. Ruffle Waffles videos. I won't deny that this quest-based approach really started to grind my gears in later zombies maps, where it became all about needless bloody busy work first, and put survival and the actual fun part of shooting zombies, what the game mode is called, second. Good luck getting to anything past round 30 if you haven't watched 27 videos about all the stuff you need to do.
Hi guys, Mr. Ruffle Waffles here, and in today's no-nonsense guide, we're going to be getting the double upgraded staff of the Elder Fucks by round 3, specifically the one that fires orange PNGs of Steve Buscemi or some
shit, I don't know. But it sounds like something Treyarch would do. I should also say that I'm not ragging on Milo or any zombies content creators, I love them all, but it does make you laugh at just how ridiculous things got after Black Ops 2. Aside from the impact it had going forward, Origins is a very fun map with plenty to come back and replay it for, with one of the best Easter eggs in the series. While they were fun as stereotypes cracking jokes all the time, I really liked the more grounded versions of the original crew. Hearing their monologue and having them react to and question all the stuff happening around them, trying to rationalize it and just push on with the mission at hand, makes them much easier to relate to as characters. Overall, Black Ops 2 Zombies is a lot of fun with great variety to be found, even if it did get off to a rocky start. Mob of the Dead gave the game mode a much needed line of G Fuel to kick it back into gear, but after that, I couldn't fault it. Great mechanics, great wonder weapons, barring that piece of shit, and some great memories came from it too. It's no wonder people want a Zombies Chronicles 2 with many of these maps in it. Black Ops 2 to me represents the end of an era, not just for Call of Duty's golden age, but of gaming at large. Starting with the original Modern Warfare in 2007, the franchise released banger after banger game that did extremely well critically and even better commercially. Black Ops 2 feels like the last hurrah of this golden era, before we got the often ridiculed Call of Duty Ghosts. Yeah, that's a game that exists. I'll talk about that one next year. From Ghosts onwards, there were plenty of unnecessary changes to the Call of Duty formula, impacting the simple yet effective way that the multiplayer was balanced. Microtransactions like supply drops started becoming more prominent and intrusive, starting with Advanced Warfare, even leaking into zombies of all game modes. The campaigns became noticeably less entertaining and offered less content, despite the massive strides Treyarch made in this game, trying to make a single-player campaign that was varied with multiple ways to play and earn cool rewards, or unlock Easter eggs with big ramifications for the story. The matchmaking experience became tainted by strict and invisible skill-based systems when it used to be social and relaxed. Seemingly every popular video game franchise has followed suit. Call of Duty sneezes and the rest of the industry gets the SBMM and microtransaction flu apparently. Unlike many games released in the last few years, Black Ops 2's content offering was rich and diverse. The social features allowed creators to make content that propelled it to new heights of popularity. The zombies experience is timeless and secured the success of what once was a very niche little side game mode, going forward to become one of the main reasons people even bought future Call of Duty games. The memories it's given to so many of us will always be remembered, and it's a blessing that there are people like the Plutonium team who are dedicated to keeping the experience alive and well, while Activision just sits on their ass and obviously couldn't care less. Black Ops 2 bookends what I firmly believe to be the best decade that the gaming industry has ever seen, that started in 2002 following on from the release of Halo Combat Evolved a year prior. Activision can blab on as much as they'd like about sales figures and most concurrent players, but from a standpoint of quality, pure enjoyment and community engagement, Black Ops 2 was the peak of this franchise, and from then on, it was downhill. Not just for Call of Duty, I might add, but coincidentally the industry at large. As the live service model became more and more common and publishers became more interested in profits first rather than the players, despite the two going hand in hand, it became a snowball effect, as one popular game franchise after another started succumbing to anti-consumer practices, ball-drainingly boring battle passes, trend-hopping, or morally grey ways of keeping player attention up. One era started, and another ended with Black Ops 2.